Marcelo Rios. Marcelo Rios had talent that made purists drool and a temper that made him dangerous. The Chilean became the first Latin American man to reach the world #1 spot in tennis. But when it came to his behavior, it was anything but professional. He has a huge list of controversies to his name. One widely reported claim suggested he drove over his physical trainer in his Jeep, which caused him serious foot injuries, and he later fired that trainer too. He was also accused by his second wife of pushing her out of a moving car, with media outlets publishing images of her in a wheelchair with visible bruises. Rios strongly denied the allegations, attributing her injuries to a skiing accident. But it doesn't end with that. He was also arrested in Rome in 2001 after he punched a taxi driver on the nose and later had a fight with the police officer, who arrested him. The guy even allegedly urinated on some men in a bar's bathroom while training for his Davis Cup match in 2003. And how can I forget about his constant clashes with the media, umpires, and other tournament officials? He eventually retired early from tennis at the age of 27 because of a long-term injury. Now he lives reclusively and remains a mysterious and volatile figure in Chilean sports. Rios is an icon and a warning for the people around him at the same time. Damir Dokic. Where can I even start with Damir Dokic? He's been called one of the most violent, unhinged figures in tennis history, and all for the right reasons. He was banned from multiple tournaments after threatening staff, smashing phones, and screaming at officials. He once threw a piece of fish at a cafeteria worker at the US Open after complaining about paying $10 for it. Dokic was later banned from the tournament, but in 2009, he crossed the line into criminal insanity. Dokic was sentenced to 15 months in prison after he threatened the Australian ambassador to Serbia with a hand grenade and told him that he'll blow up his car. Who even does that? He was jailed for causing public danger, making terrorist threats, and for illegal possession of weapons. He did file an appeal, but it was upheld in September 2009. But after a further appeal, his sentence was reduced to 12 months, and he was released from jail in April 2010. Damir's behavior was so out of control that Jelena had to completely cut ties with her father to protect herself. This wasn't just bad parenting, it was a descent into pure madness. I don't even know how the people close to him survived and let his behavior go unnoticed. Arantxa Sánchez Becario. Arantxa Sánchez was once the pride of Spanish tennis. She has 4 Grand Slam singles titles to her name and had a reputation as a relentless fighter in her playing days. But retirement didn't go too well for her, as her life spiraled into courtroom drama and scandal. The former world #1 was accused of hiding assets to avoid paying over €5 million in taxes. She was also given a suspended 2-year jail sentence for fraud. Sánchez Becario, her ex-husband Josep Santacana, and 3 other people were convicted at a Barcelona criminal court of hiding assets. But in a shocking twist, Sánchez blamed her ex-husband for everything, claiming that he was the one handling all her money for decades and left her bankrupt. Imagine reaching the top of your sport, only to declare, years later, that you had no idea where your fortune went. And that's exactly what the court said, too. They said, even though she had no financial knowledge to carry out operations, she was fully aware of what was being done with her assets, and also about the debt she still had with the Bank of Luxembourg. Her public image was completely shattered after this incident. One moment she was the darling of Roland Garros. The next she was a disgraced fraudster with a prison sentence hanging over her head. Jeff Tarango. Jeff wasn't just a hothead. He was a full-blown tennis rebel. At Wimbledon, 1995, Tarango went into full meltdown mode. He was already having a bad day at the court as he heard all of the crowd chanting in support of his opponent. Clearly annoyed by the scenes, Tarango yelled, "Oh, shut up!" at the crowd. After the umpire gave him a code violation for this, he called him corrupt. But the madness didn't end there. Obviously, the umpire gave him another violation for verbal abuse, and with that came something that was almost unheard of at the time. Tarango threw the balls he had in his hand, picked up his bag, and left the court, just like that. But the craziness didn't stop there. After the match, his wife claimed, she walked up to the umpire and slapped him on his face. That's not just drama. That's assault. According to the wife, the umpire deserved a lesson at some point. Tarango became the unofficial face of on-court madness after this, and over the years, he never quite managed to shed his chaotic energy. He ranted about corruption in tennis, made bizarre interviews, and clashed with other players and officials long after he retired. Tarango may not have broken any laws, but he did shatter the limits of sportsmanship. Jelena Dokic. Jelena Dokic isn't the villain in this story. In fact, she's the survivor. She broke into the tennis elite as a teenager. She was just 16 when she defeated Martina Hingis at Wimbledon in 1999, but behind her astonishing career were darkness and nightmares. Her father, Damir Dokic, was physically, verbally, and emotionally abusive. He beat her with belts to the point of bleeding, pushed her against walls, and controlled her diet and every move. She later revealed that she lived in a state of constant fear, even while touring the world as a top-ranked athlete. She hid the abuse for years and years, fearing retaliation. One could only imagine the mental toll this kind of abuse had on her and how she still continued to thrive on court. Her 2017 memoir exposed everything she went through. Jelena has since become a mental health advocate, trying to help others. But the trauma she had endured left scars that will stay there forever. Her story isn't Psycho. Her father's is. Marat Safin. This guy's the hot-tempered heartthrob of tennis. He just might be the most lovable psycho in tennis history. On the surface, he had everything you could ask for. He had height, power, charisma, and a game that could demolish anyone. But his mental game? It was unhinged. The guy literally destroyed over 1,000 rackets during his career. Fans started showing up to his games to see how long his rackets would survive the abuse. In the 2004 French Open, he celebrated a particularly nifty shot by mooning the crowd. Yeah, you heard it right. He did that. The guy even defended his actions later by asking, "What's bad about it? Seriously?" People were starting to wonder what he would do if he ended up winning the tournament. And they were not wrong to worry about it. He once partied so hard after his 2000 US Open win that he showed up the next day at a press conference with almost no sleep at all. And it was clearly visible. He even admitted in interviews that he didn't care about legacy. He's just here to have fun. Marat Safin was less criminal and more self-destructive, but he embodied chaos in tennis like few ever have. A walking contradiction of brilliance and takedowns. Martina Hingis. Martina Hingis was a tennis prodigy at one point, winning a slam at just 16 and dominating the sport in the late 90s. But her personal life spun into tabloid-worthy madness. At Wimbledon in 2007, she tested positive for cocaine and was handed a 2-year ban. She denied it and was suddenly forced to retire at the age of 27 to avoid a drawn-out scandal. But the madness didn't stop there. Her ex-husband accused Hingis and her mother of physically assaulting him. Thibaut Youton, the ex-husband, claimed Hingis, her mother, and her mother's partner, Mario Widmer, showed up at his apartment unannounced. Hingis and her mother allegedly hit him while Widmer struck on his head with a DVD player. These allegations were shocking for someone who was once known as the Swiss Miss. Hingis never faced criminal charges, but her post-retirement behavior stunned the tennis world. It was like seeing a completely different face of Martina Hingis, which nobody knew existed. From teen icon to a scandal-plagued retiree, her transformation was as chaotic as it was tragic. Bernard Tomic. Bernard Tomic may be the poster boy for wasted potential and delusional confidence. He once was a junior prodigy, but then things took a turn, and he became known for tanking matches and being a professional drama magnet. He admitted to deliberately giving up and losing a match at Wimbledon 2017. The reason? Because he felt bored. He was beaten in straight sets by Misha Zverev. He even admitted to calling the trainer, despite not being injured, in order to disrupt the momentum of his opponent. The ITF then fined Tomic £11,600, a huge sum of his £35,000 earnings from the tournament. Tomic once said he didn't love the game and only played for money. The guy even joined a reality show called "I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here." He's been involved in multiple nightclub fights and posted rants on Instagram, trashing other players and the ATP. In 2024 at the RD Open, an ATP challenger in the Dominican Republic, Tomic refused to shake hands after losing to Andres Andrade. Tomic showed up at the final between Andrade and his friend Damir Dzumhur in disguise. Wearing a cap and sunglasses, Tomic allegedly moved around the stadium to stay as close to Andrade as possible, heckling him throughout the match. When Andrade got into a dispute with the umpire, Tomic joined in from the stands. That was the final straw. After the first set, security was called, and Tomic was kicked out of the stadium. Even Nick Kyrgios couldn't help but laugh, calling it unreal stuff on X. Tomic isn't a villain, he's a walking cautionary tale with a big, I don't care attitude. But somehow, he keeps finding new ways to outdo himself. Pat Cash. Pat Cash was Australia's bandana wearing Wimbledon champion. But after his retirement, he turned into one of tennis's most unpredictable and controversial voices. Post-retirement, he's dabbled in everything from bizarre conspiracy theories to bizarre accusations against tennis institutions. He's publicly claimed that the COVID-19 pandemic was overblown, hinted at vaccine conspiracies, and labeled media outlets as part of a larger manipulation campaign. Cash even admitted to being violent, depressed, and hooked on cocaine. He said this was the reason why his marriage ended with the love of his life. He's become a kind of tennis shock jock, saying what no one else will, but often without a filter or factual backing. If you enjoyed this one, subscribe to the channel, because I'll be posting a lot here. Until next time.